an episode a couple months back with I feel bad I'm blanking on his name. One of the guys from Wirecast and um, it's their parent Telestream. I think it's their parent company. So I wish we did enough of this to justify using their gear because it's much more powerful than what we do, which is a little, we make it work.
Yeah, they're right next door to us. Yeah, that I
Yeah.
fully understand that. Yeah, yeah, we're Nevada County is an amazing area because it's like a mini Silicon Valley up here. A lot of the engineers and high tech people come up here when Grass Valley Group started way back when. And after the company changed, a lot of the engineers and tech people wanted to stay because of this area. And so we have this amazing talent base here.
Okay. We are live on YouTube rather. Make sure the embeds all worked out. Yep. Looks like we are live on the nctechconnection.org homepage. Okay. Pull up. And let me pull up the email with the questions I sent. Okay. So really appreciate you joining me for this. It's always a kind of not really a challenge, but more trying to find new things to cover with tech in Nevada County. And we've been doing this for a year and a half of COVID. So not quite running out of topics, but it was that whole like, okay, who are we going to talk to this month?
Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
And yeah, no, it seemed like particularly given the article that Holly wrote talking with Debbie about this stuff earlier, seems like you guys are doing some cool stuff. So let me just make sure before we get going. Thom Tanner, nothing fancy about the pronunciation, right?
Nope, pretty easy.
And and are you the founder or co-founder specifically?
I'm the founder and CEO.
Okay, so you're the founder and CEO, and we talked about how you had the patent before everything got off the ground. So okay, I think the basic stumbling blocks of I got your name pronunciation right. You're the founder and CEO, and then we'll get started with talking about you know um, what we discussed in the email. Uh, cool. And I'm gonna turn on the Facebook feeds now.
Juggling quite a few things at once, aren't you?
Well, I use Restream, which makes it not simple, but at least I've got a basic dashboard where I can turn on the feeds independently of Zoom, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Um, so I was able to do all of this. I'm going to have to do more editing of the YouTube video than of the Facebook video because of that. YouTube, has been in the background now for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and share this to a couple of the local groups, and then we'll get rolling.
Sounds good.
Get in there. Okay. Yeah, whatnot. Okay. I think we are just about there. I'm going to close some unnecessary tabs here to save my battery and processor. And okay. Leave Facebook up so I can see comments. And I think we are about there. Pull up my notes so I can see what we're doing here. And like always, just about wrap things up by 6. The first couple of months of doing this when COVID got rolling was I would describe as a learning experience. Feeling a little more know what I'm doing, going with the flow here nowadays. So
Yeah, I can see how it would be tough to get everything rolling by 6 when you're just starting out with this.
and particularly with it was definitely a learning curve figuring out how to make all this work. But I think we are there. It's 6 o'clock right on the nose. We're live in all the places. I've got my notes up, so I actually know what we're going to talk about here. And without further ado, hello, Nevada County. This is David Clark Carroll with the Nevada County Tech Connection. We're a project of the Nevada County Economic Resource Council, tasked with looking at manufacturing, technology, really how they intersect in Nevada County. We've talked with many people in the county over the last year, from Nevada County Media to Telestream, and we're joined tonight by Thom Tanner. You may know him from his company's previous name of Telestepper. Now he's Presentertek. He's the founder and CEO, and has quite an interesting story about how we got to here. So thanks for joining us tonight, Thom. How'd you get from A to B? What was your career path leading you to this moment in time?
That's a good question. David, first off, thanks for having me on. I've been a mechanical engineer for about 28 years now. I started out designing sensor-fused weapons. Then after that, I actually went to designing medical products. So it was a complete reversal of careers. So I stayed in that medical products career for quite a bit, almost 20 years. And then near the 20-year mark, my brother, who owns a filming company in the Bay Area, one day said, "Hey, I need some sort of a device that will allow me to teleprompt for speakers of different heights." And he was working with Lucasfilm in about a week and a half. And he said, "Can you design something like this?" So on my lunch break, I came up with this design, and I welded things together that night, put things together with what I had around the place. And in about a week, I had a working prototype. And so my brother came by. He picked it up at about 6 in the morning. The shoot was at 9. And he said it worked great. And the director of special effects over Lucasfilm at Industrial Light and Magic down in Marin really liked it. So that was kind of the catalyst for me to be able to say, "Hey, maybe I could do this." And so made a few more prototypes. And those prototypes were actually taken by my brother down to San Diego for the Democratic National Convention at the time. The White House happened to be there. They saw the prototypes and they said, "Who makes this thing?" And my brother scribbled out my name on a post-it note and gave it to the guy. And I got a call from the White House 2 days later, and the White House said, "Hey, can you make these things for us?" And I said, "Well, sure." And then 2 days passed, and then they said, "Can you make 100 for us?" And I said, "Wow, okay, yeah." So anyway, I got into manufacturing just like that, called up a lot of my friends, and I was kind of thrust into deciding whether I wanted to do this or not. I mean, it was kind of scary. I was working for this other firm. And then I decided I was going to resign from the other company with this contract in hand, and we wound up making all the teleprompters in 2018. We made over 100 for the White House, and they've been used all these years now for two presidential administration, the Trump and the Biden administration. So then they're being used now currently.
That's one serious jump. I was expecting a little bit more of, oh, I was kicking this idea around. So literally the actual, not the first prototype, but early prototypes. You didn't have the company. Did you have the patent at that point, or was this all just prototypes that you were working on?
That's a good question. Once I realized that this was a patentable design, I had worked on a few other patents before, and I had some experience. And so in the evenings, I just started writing the patent and realized that I could do both at the same time. And I got it reviewed by a patent attorney and submitted it because the problems in the industry suggested that they needed a change. And so I I addressed these changes with this patent and this product because I know that you can protect yourself for a bit with a patent, but if someone wants to evade that patent, they will do that. And you have two things you can do. One, you can do a cease and desist. Your attorney can say, "Hey, stop making this product," to whoever it is. Or number two, you could say to the company, "Hey, okay, go ahead and make the product, but I get 40% of your products or your profit." And so either way, I wasn't too worried about it, but so far so good.
So for a product like this, is it a single patent that encompasses all of the developments, or did you patent uh, a specific element of the teleprompter that was new?
In the one patent, there's 8 claims. So
Okay.
each claim is addresses a specific part of the telestepper. So the more claims you have, the stronger the patent is. So that really helped us out. If you go into a patent with, say, only 2 claims, then it's very weak. So we were lucky to have 8 identifiable, very significant claims in the patent.
So that's if someone's thinking about developing an idea, they really need to make sure they've got a lot of things that are distinctive and unique to allow it to be a patentable item.
That's
That's
right.
pretty cool that you managed to hit it out of the ballpark on that first go.
Well, it takes some practice. I mean, it helps to also look at other patents, how people write utility patents. I mean, there's 3 types of patents in this world. There's design, utility, and plant patents. And so most of the patents out there are utility patents. Well, I should say there's a fourth one. It's not really a patent. It's a provisional patent. And all it is it covers you for a period of 1 year if you write this provisional patent and no one else can capitalize on your idea. You have essentially first dibs to utility patent, but after 1 year, it expires. So it's definitely recommended if you have an idea to file a provisional patent application, but then you have to follow up within 1 year with a utility patent. And we've
Uh,
done that on some of our new products that
okay.
we released here over this last year too.
But this first one, you just went straight for, you had the 8 completely unique identifying things, and you were able to just go straight to the finish line.
That's right. That's right.
Very, very cool. Now, before you filed that patent, it sounds like you built these prototypes and figured out how to make them happen. Let's talk a little bit about that process, because I think that's it's just so cool when you can turn an idea in your mind into something you can hold and use. So how are you able to make it real?
Well, that's a good question, David. A lot of companies now use 3D graphic prototyping, and I like that for conceptual ideas, especially if you're working in a 3D modeling software. You can just load that into your printer and come up with a part. The problem with that is that it's non-structural. Now they do have new resins where it is stronger than the resins that they used a few years ago. For example, you can prototype in acetyl now, which is an engineered resin. But if you need a structural part and you have the capability to actually machine it, then that's what we typically do. We go from concept to actual part overnight. And one of the ways we can do that is that we have a mill and we have a lathe. And so if we have a part drawing and we know that we feel very, very comfortable about it, we'll actually machine the part in metal or aluminum or acetyl. And then that next morning, we can join the 2 parts. We can have a working assembly that's structural. So we don't have to say, well, we have this thing together now, but it just don't touch it very much because it's not great. A lot of the 3D printed parts are. And so for us, I can machine something like this overnight, and the next day we have a fully functioning prototype that we can put through its paces. And so it's a lot quicker for us to be able to do that. But if you don't have access to a mill or a lathe, like a CNC mill or something like that, then your lead time gets extended. So you might be able to print a part in 3D and say, wow, this thing looks like it's going to work. And then you hire a machine shop to build the part. That's another week before you get those parts. And so if you are, as a lot of your mechanical engineers are, into instant gratification, you want to have the parts sooner than later. And so that was a big help for us to be able to have the mill and the lathe available to us.
Now, was that something you'd already had as just part of your work process, or how did you come by that equipment to make it real?
That's a good question. Yeah, when we first realized that this concept or this prototype could be real, that's when I went out and I bought the equipment. And I tell you, it has helped us so much, not just only in prototyping, but also in any kind of rework of parts or things like that. They say, for example, a manufacturer has made a part and they've forgotten a few holes or something like that on one side. Well, and then we have this order that's got to go out in 2 days. Well, I can just take the parts and put in those holes or those features, and it doesn't slow us down. But if we were to have, say, a machine shop do this, it might be a week or 2 before we get the parts back. So having that ability and the knowledge to run the machines was a big help to us.
Now, that first prototype sounds like you built without the benefit of those tools. What for, what were the challenges you faced in getting that first that first idea off the ground then, if you didn't have all of this wonderful equipment?
That's a good question, Dave. So that was the first prototype was done without a mill or a lathe, and so we bought off the shelf parts, and then the pieces of metal were literally welded together. So I was in my garage welding these parts together and using hardware store parts, and it worked. And so we use, for example, instead of we manufacture our own printed circuit boards now. But before then, we used our Arduino or Raspberry Pi boards that you just get off the internet, controller driver boards. So, but we made it work, and within a week and a half, we had this prototype ready for Lucasfilm.
That's pretty cool. So I really like hearing how, I mean, obviously you've made some pretty serious advancements to get the patents and build the company to where it is now, but you're making it sound like, oh, you just put some stuff together and, make it happen, which is just so cool.
Well, it helps to have a little bit of a inventive background and creative. I think there's a couple different types of mechanical engineers. The ones who are very book smart, and they um, they can remember formulas and equations off the top of their head, but they've never actually physically made anything. And then there's another type of engineer who might have that background, but they've also been lucky enough to be able to, say, for example, take an industrial technology class in college or high school where they can get their hands on equipment and they can build things. And I'll tell you, the second type of engineer, which hopefully that's who I am, we have a lot more confidence, I feel, because if you have the ability to make things, you don't have to wait for someone else to help you, and B, it gives you a lot of confidence because you know that you can meet deadlines, and I guess C is you have a better idea of will a part or assembly work or not, because you could have a conceptual be very book smart, but unless you've actually cut metal or put things together, it really limits you as an engineer.
Totally, totally. So this brings me to a question about, okay, you've built this company, you've got it patented. What was upscaling that production process? Like, how did you get from making a couple prototypes that your brother took down to San Diego to, okay, we got an order for 100?
Yeah, no, that's another good question. I literally took all of my savings and I ransomed my 401k and used that money to buy parts because um, we needed parts immediately, and I knew that we had this contract with White House, for example, and so I I literally took every penny that I had and went out and bought all these parts and assemblies and rented a facility, hired people, uh, and we made it work. Now, if I were to do that without a contract, that would be very, very scary. So, luckily, things worked out with this government contract from the White House. I mean, that's fairly reputable, and so when we got that check after the final shipment was made, um, everything just got paid back. So it worked out really well.
So the lesson there is invest big once you've got the contract, not before.
Yeah, that's true. But sometimes you have to do it the other way. I mean, it takes money to make money, and so you may need to have a business loan to sell these prototypes to these different people and get them interested, because without that, it's very tough to sell products. So we have a demo fleet where if someone is interested in our products, we can ship those out to them immediately. And most of the time, if we sell, if I should say, if we send a demonstration product out, it never comes back. In other words, purchase it, which is good.
So this is a nice segue to, you've got some new products that I believe you developed over the last year and a half or so, correct?
Well, actually in 2020,
Okay.
it is extremely hard because we are in the business of making products for live presentations. So you can imagine live presentations, concerts, commencements, graduations, all that stuff just stopped. And so we thought, okay, what can we do? We have different options. We can close our doors, or wait, or lay everyone off for a period of time, or we could develop new products. And my thought was, let's take this time to develop new products for two reasons. One, everyone's in the same boat. Everyone, I mean, not just in the live events industry, but in other industries as well. You're talking about restaurants, hotels, everyone. So let's develop these new products so that when we come out of the pandemic, we have these products ready to go. So let's take advantage of this opportunity. The other thing was that we started out with one product, and this is it, the Telestepper. And my analogy is that it was like a single stock as opposed to a mutual fund where you're more protected. If someone were to copy our design and reverse engineer it, we're really on shaky grounds. But if we have other products out there, and if one product is not doing good in sales, but another one is, now you're more like a mutual fund where you have multiple stocks and more products, and you're less vulnerable. So we now have 6 products, and we have the original Telestepper. We have a robotic microphone mover that clamps to podiums and lecterns so that you always have your audio correct. We have a product that moves PTZ cameras, pan-tilt zoom cameras, from the ceiling or from the floor. And because PTZ cameras right now only move back and forth, as you know, pan-tilt zoom. We have another product, which is what we call the Podium Prompter. And essentially, when you use a lectern or a podium, say, for example, a college professor comes up to a podium, he's got his notes, right? He's got paper notes. But we want to change that. We want to be able to have a teleprompting glass come out of the podium. So that's what we did. So we basically put robotics inside of a podium so that if a professor wanted, he could have teleprompting glass in front of his face between him and the audience. He could read his whole presentation in front of the audience, and then when he's done, disappears inside of the podium. And so he could take his script on, say, his iPad or even his phone, plug it into our device, and then everything's up there. So no more notes or cue cards or anything like that. And so what we want to really do is to kind of change the industry of speaking and have people less rely upon these notes, because you've probably been in a presentation before where if you watch a speaker who's at a podium and they don't really know their script very well, say it's a first-time presenter, you'll do this thing where your head's down, then it's up, then it's down, then it's up. And so, you lose some of your audience comprehension. And comprehension is the most valuable holy grail thing in presentations. So we didn't want to lose any of the audience. So having a teleprompting, essentially heads-up display, like you see on fancy cars or fighter jets, like that. That's essentially what we've done with a podium now. So we now have the Podium Prompter as well. We also have another product which is called a Q-spin. And so in the teleprompting industry, queuing up or queuing a script is kind of an industry term. And so what this device does is it rotates the studio prompters to the talent. So say, for example, if you're in a TV studio and you're the main anchor, you're the weatherman, or you're someone who might walk around the studio, you want to be able to have your teleprompter follow you with the words, because otherwise, if you're off axis, you can't read the words. If you need to be able to have that right facing you. So essentially, that's what this Q-spin does. And so, so now we're working with TV station groups on this product.
Very cool. I just want to roll back from here and talk about. We've talked about Telestep. We haven't really shown we talked about what is so cool about it, which in my mind is all those pictures of people speaking to crowds with what looks like just panes of glass up there, and those are your teleprompters.
That's right.
And it's just so cool, particularly when you're talking about the presentation one. I think that's such a cool innovation, particularly in our current era, where a lot of it is to a camera or to maybe a small group of people and to a camera. So having the ability to maintain that eye contact while you're doing the presentation and film right through the glass is just so cool.
David, if you were to ask most people, do you know what a teleprompter is? The majority of people do not know what a teleprompter is. And in fact, when I was in my teens, I would see these teleprompters, and they were fixed at that time. They didn't move. For example, Ronald Reagan used them a lot. And I saw these two screens on either side of the podium, and I always thought that they were bulletproof pieces of glass. And I thought to myself, well, how does the shooter know exactly where to shoot them? And why can't they just move? And I just could never figure it out. And so here I am now, years later, making a product that kind of answers that question. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Well, and I think most people, like I know when I was growing up, I didn't think of a teleprompter other than like at karaoke or something, where you think it's just a TV screen on the floor or something.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I think the magic of a teleprompting glass is pretty amazing, because to the speaker's point of view, you have your script and it's very easy to read. But from the audience point of view, on the reverse side, they just see a slightly darkened piece of glass, but they could still see your face. So what teleprompting does for a lot of speakers, especially first-time speakers, is it helps them with their confidence. So you can be a first-time speaker, walk right up to the podium, and there's your script on this piece of glass. So the real secret behind teleprompting is that the speakers are reading their script about 3 feet away. So their focal length, what they're reading, what they're looking at is only 3 feet away. But the audience thinks you're looking directly at them in their eye. So the audience thinks, wow, we have an eye-to-eye connection. I mean, that line of sight and that eye connection is extremely valuable. I mean, kind of like when I was talking earlier about the people who are looking at you break that. So
yeah,
you can be a first-time speaker, extremely nervous and scared, but if you're reading your script right there, you're only focused on the words. You're not focused on, say, for example, those people in the first row who were making funny faces at you or anything like that. And it works out great. So it instills confidence. You don't lose your script. I mean, it's right there, and the audience loves it.
Well, that's just awesome. I just wanted to geek out a little bit about that because I think it's one of the it's just cool stuff. Um, I'd like to switch gears a little bit here and talk about how Presentertek and Nevada County go together and how you feel, what the community has helped you do, and yeah, just kind of take off from there because you're right at this point a linchpin Nevada County business. We've profiled you a couple times now at the ERC, and you guys work with a good friend of mine, Chris Kelly. I know does some powder coating for you still, so you're very embedded in the community. Love to hear a little bit more about it. What you think about that?
Sure. Yeah. Nevada County has helped us quite a bit. Your organization, of course, as well. But we've had so much support that it's incredible. Everyone wants us to succeed, and I think we have an advantage here because, as I mentioned before, Nevada County, because of the origins of some of these previous companies that were here. I mean, even TDK had a think tank up here. I mean, there's a lot of big names in the video industry that started here. We have the resources, the technical resources to be able to help us develop products and be successful on them. So this mini Silicon Valley has been just amazing to us. Now, if we were in, say, some other community, I don't think we'd be as lucky. But keeping things local is something that we're very, very interested in. So, for example, you mentioned Chris Kelly. Chris Kelly owns a bicycle building business. He's right across the street from us, literally. And we found out that he does powder coating. Well, some of our parts need finishing. So when we were working with a previous company, we had to drive the parts down there or ship them, and then we had this turnaround of a week again. And so Chris one day said, "Hey, I can paint for you. I can do this powder coating." So now we literally have hundreds of parts machined. We put them on a cart. We push the cart across the street, and Chris does all the powder coating for us, and then we bring them back. I mean, he's literally 60, 80 feet away. Yeah, we have this symbiotic relationship with some of our local vendors. And I mean, all the machine shops, for example, are in Nevada, well, and a few in Placer County too. But we're trying to keep everything here local and American made. And so, for example, on our Presentertek website, you'll see probably in the footer a few times a mention about American-made products. And I am a firm believer in trying to reshore products that have gone overseas. If we can do that, we will be so much stronger as a country. So I worked for another company before, and some of the employees here have as well, where the company was sold and all those products went to China and Mexico. And the company went from 65 employees down to 12 in a matter of 3 months. And so all in the name of profit. And so I'm trying to show that we can still make a product here in Nevada County in Northern California without having to do that. And sure, we take a cut, we take a hit on our profit margin. We do. But knowing that we're employing local people and we're in labor and in parts, I tell you, you can sleep great at night when you know it.
So given the legacy of companies like Grass Valley Group and the whole mini Silicon Valley, have you been able to fill most of the positions that you've needed locally, or have you had to
because the thing about Nevada County is it's a great place to live. I mean, it's like almost being in Tahoe. And so who wouldn't want to live here? And so when you have these companies that have come in previously and they may have been bought out or moved, all these people who remain that have these high-tech degrees or this technical background, that helps us out so much because we never run out of resources to help us or to advise us, such as yourself.
That's pretty cool. Man, really glad we got you on tonight. This is turning into an awesome episode here. Now, I want to kind of roll back a little bit to the new products that we discussed. Was there you compared it to a mutual fund, you want to really diversify your options and have different products. So there's the Podium Teleprompter, which seems very aimed at in-person events. You've got those remote cameras and the pan and tilt things, which seem almost more aimed at our current era, where things are more remote. Have those new items hit the market yet, or are you still ramping up production on those?
We are still ramping up on 2 products. We're focusing on the ones that are, to be honest, making us the money right now because it's our bread and butter. And so we've got to really focus on delivering to our distributors. We have 3 main distributors, and then there's resellers from those distributors as well. So because of 2020, as I said, we were pretty hard hit. To bounce back, we've really had to focus on the manufacturing of the bread and butter, which is essentially the telestepper, but also the Q-spin as well for the TV stations. So we are getting the other products out, but it takes some time, of course. And
but it sounds like you have built a customer base for that product aimed at TV stations. Then that's starting to take off now.
yeah,
Very cool.
with Sony and Panasonic as potentials when we first started this product, that lended some credence in developing this product. So that really helped. And then by having our distributors, that and having them promoted on their website and email blasts and things like that, because of that, our marketing department didn't have to be huge. And so we rely upon that. I mean, obviously they take a cut in the profit, so we'd rather sell our products directly. And one of the things that we did in 2020 in developing those 5 new products is we went to a Shopify buy it now style website. And so what that's done is what we found out from looking at the psyche of purchasers is that if someone wants to buy a product and they're really interested in it and they say, I really like this thing, I want to get it now, but they realize that they have to wait till tomorrow or they have to call someone up or something like that or fill out these forms, it's going to be tough. But if you can buy it now, again, there's that instant gratification, and we wanted to remove any kind of roadblocks between the buyer and shipping a product out the next day. So that's why we went to that style of website.
I mean, I think that's a real common theme from folks I've talked to over the last year of how can we make sure you can buy this from us now? You might have to wait until tomorrow to pick it up. You might have to, wait for it to be shipped, but there's no longer a need to have a whole bunch of lag time and like, oh, I'm going to drive down to this store and that store and that store and see which one I like most. It's now, you know what you want and you want to make sure you can get it. So I think it's really cool that you've embraced that side of it too.
The other risk is that if someone can't buy buy it now, they will look for an alternative. I mean, you've probably done this yourself. You're shopping online and you say, "Oh, this is out," or "I can't buy it right now, so I'll go look for something else." And you find it and you buy that. So we didn't want to run the risk of someone seeing our product, not being able to buy it right away, and going to a competitor's website or somewhere else, or to one of our distributors and buy it there. We'd rather sell it direct. Obviously, our profit margin is greater. So I'm not bashing our distributors at all. They are great people, but they understand that if we are selling direct because of our contracts, sure, our profit margin is higher. So that's why we went to the buy it now style of website.
Well, I think one of the cool things about that too is that people have a more personal relationship with the company. It's not, oh, I got this at so and so. It's made by who cares. It's, oh, I reached out to them, placed an order, got a confirmation right away. They made sure to send me the tracking info. Just the little touches where it, it's become harder in some ways to find many items over the last year or so. Everyone knows what they couldn't find at critical times, and to have that ability to directly connect with the company, I think is something that people really embraced over the last year. Whereas before, it might have been more, no, we don't want to get into that side of the business. We're happy making it and not selling it. So glad to hear you guys are embracing that fully. A lot of Nevada County companies that did that as well. I was getting NC kombucha delivered to my house. You
Oh,
know, yeah, little things like that where you have to meet your customers where they are if you want them to buy your product.
right.
Uh, so glad that's a part of your model, and hopefully anyone out there thinking about getting your stuff, buy it straight from them.
That's
Uh,
right. And David, one of the things that is, if I might say this, is a huge learning curve for people who are just starting businesses. We just started 4 years ago. Is that you need to constantly market your product. And if you build the best product in the world, but no one knows about it, it's going to frustrate you and you'll run out. You'll just go out of business. And so that was a hard pill for us to swallow. And so we're getting better, much better at the marketing, thanks to folks like yourself and other organizations, that we can um, send the message out through uh, whatever means necessary. But it's a constant, has to happen constantly. And that was honestly one of our downfalls at first, is that we didn't realize the importance of constant marketing in different channels too. And we kind of had to test the waters to find out, hey, this doesn't work, or this works really good, or we'll find this type of person. We need to use this message. We need to solve problems. We need to answer their questions and deliver them something that addresses their needs. And so we got into this way of thinking with marketing, and it's really starting to turn the company around after what has happened to all these country or companies in 2020 because of the pandemic.
well, I'd love to talk a little bit about how you really made the decision to change your name. Now, you mentioned it was partly because you wanted to diversify your offerings and make it a little more clear, but there's also a little bit of a backstory behind the tech part of it that I'd love to hear you elaborate about.
Sure. Yeah, we started out with the name Telestepper because we thought it kind of addressed different uh, meanings. So, for example, teleprompting, and because it moves up and down, we thought, okay, it's steps. So we thought Telestepper. But we also use stepper motors inside of our product. And so as engineers being nerdy, we thought, no, who's going to think about another engineer? But yes, as we in 2020 developed these 5 other products, we said, well, we can't call the company after the flagship product. Now we need something else. But we need people in one word, or just in the name of the company, to be able to know what our products are about. So after about 40 different possible name ideas out there, we settled with Presentertek, because all of our products are based around presentations for people and doing them in more of a high-tech way of doing this, adding robotics, things like that. So the tech was kind of what we thought was a clever addition to Presenter. So we came up with Presentertek as our name. And what's interesting about it is that we talked previously about high-tech businesses in Nevada County. One of the businesses that was bought out and went to Texas about 5 years ago was a company called High Country Tech. And they used to make printed circuit boards like this one here. And so when they moved out, we moved into their building. And so High Country Tech is now Presentertek, so to speak. And so even TEK is spelled the same way.
Cool.
Kind of neat.
I like the idea of a space that did similar work. It's not vacant. It's not, flowers or something. It's still dedicated to making technology products in Nevada County, which I think is cool. Glad you guys.
Some of the buildings here were set up very well for manufacturing, and it worked great for us.
Well, I think we've actually gotten through most of my ambitious talking point plan, which is rare. Frequently, I vanish down rabbit holes and forget to come back up for air. But really appreciate you joining us. Thanks. I think a lot of what we talked about is, if anyone out there thinking about, if you have an idea, you never know if it's going to do well if you don't try. And I particularly like the lesson of, yes, you have the mills and all the gear now, but your first prototype, the very first thing that got the attention of as illustrious an organization as Lucasfilm, you just put together, and was it in your garage or basement or?
Garage.
Yet another company born in somebody's garage.
Look at Packard or Steve Jobs. I mean, yeah.
So
I was very, very fortunate. But what I found out is if you've got a concept or an idea, it's you can show it to your friends. You can have your friends review it, but have someone who's very critical, and maybe not your friend review it, because your friends will always say, gosh, David, that is the best thing since sliced bread. You got to go out and build this thing. But it's better to have someone who's a little bit more critical, and he doesn't know you or have any skin in the game, say, well, you got to think about this, and this. And if you are thin-skinned, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough pill to swallow. But if you really want to save time and make a good product or have a great service, you got to listen to those people.
That's some real valuable advice for folks out there. I think too many times you get stuck in your lane of what you want to make, what you want to do, and doesn't matter if you're aiming way off that target, you're just going full steam ahead. So
and you can really get yourself in a bind or a financial route. You can can be dangerous. Yeah. So don't rely upon the people who are your friends will always say it's the best idea in the world. You need to get some more objective commentary from people that will truly give you a straight answer.
Well, this is just awesome, Tom. I think we're about there as far as our time, and we got through everything I was hoping to talk about, which I think is awesome. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
No, I think if people were watching this and they had ideas, they feel free to contact people that might be above them, so to speak, in positions that you may not approach them normally. You might be scared to, but it will save you a lot of time if you have an idea and say, you call up somebody from a big name company and say, hey, look, can I just buy you a cup of coffee because I want to run this idea by you? And you'll be amazed at how flattered a lot of these people who have gone down this road before will say, great, yeah, 10 minutes, yeah, that sounds great. I would like to do that. And now you're drawing upon the experience of someone who has made these mistakes, gone down this road, and you've gone point A to B so much quicker than someone who goes it alone or doesn't ask questions from people who have actually done this before. So don't be afraid. I guess that's my only advice to the people out there is don't be afraid if you have a concept or an idea or a service to go out and talk to someone who doesn't have to be in your industry, but has really achieved success. And just say, hey, can I just call you for 5 minutes or buy you a cup of coffee at Starbucks or something like that? It's amazing how great that will help you. And then also you can make contacts with these people because they're flattered that you asked them to do that. I will tell you, David, the majority of executives and people out there who have these jobs, they don't get approached. They do not get approached by people just asking honest questions. I mean, they may get a lot of spam and stuff like that, but people who are honest inventors or entrepreneurs, they don't get these questions. So I'm suggesting to people and saying that if you have something that you want to pursue, talk to someone who might be well known and think unapproachable, but do it anyway.
That's just fantastic advice. I think that about brings us to an end of a fantastic TechTonic TV here. Again, I'm David Clark Carroll from the Nevada County Tech Connection. We're on initiative of the Nevada County Economic Resource Council. We've been chatting with Thom Tanner, CEO and founder of Presentertek, formerly Telestepper, and one of Nevada County's great manufacturing firms for now and the future. So thanks so much for joining us, Thom. Thanks again, folks.